everyone. I'm Ellie Barquette. I am your host for tonight's live discussion, and I'm excited to be here with our guests tonight. We have our comedian and host of Fake the Nation, Negin Farsad, and comedian Alonzo Bowden. So thank you both for joining me tonight.
Hello.
Hi, thanks so much for having us.
Of course. So we have just learned about microaggressions, stereotypes, and discrimination happening in so many parts of the world, but we're all here to make a difference and combat hate in all its forms. So let's get started. Nagin, if you remember in our first story, it was
Wait, so
about
you want us to figure out all of hate in just this Q&A right here?
Yes, that's what
Alonzo,
we're
are
here
you
for.
ready? Because we have a big job in just
Well,
Yes.
you go
a
first.
few
You
minutes.
go first, and I'll clean up what you don't cover, and then we'll be
Okay.
done.
For those at home, they are friends. Nagin and Alonzo know each other, so this is going to be a great time. So our first
Sorry,
question we have,
continue your question.
that's okay. Nagin, if you remember our first story, it was about microaggressions, these little phrases that people toss into conversations that are offensive. Have you experienced them yourself?
I mean, yeah, I think everyone's experienced a microaggression. Maybe it's race based or gender based or whatever, or maybe it's just like people that are just passive aggressive and annoying. Like everyone has experienced a microaggression, from like, are you gonna wear that outfit to something that's more pointed, like the examples that they gave in that first segment that are more about race and gender, and definitely, I'm married. My husband is black, and so oftentimes he'll point out, that people come and ask us like if they can help us, but it's not like, if we're in a store or something like that. It's more like they're asking, "What are you doing here?" And this happens more to him than to me, and so I feel like I see it happen a lot, especially when I'm with him.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing. How about you, Alonzo? Have you experienced any microaggressions throughout your career?
Well, Nagin hit on it. I mean, being black in America is just one. You just deal with it. You can't. The funny thing about microaggressions, right? They're small, but you can't react to every one of them, or you would be reacting constantly. Like all my life, people have been afraid of me. I'm a large black man, and they're taught to be afraid of us. That image is continually pounded into them that we are dangerous. So, whether it be me walking down the street and somebody crossing the street, or people not getting in the elevator with you, or like Nagin said, when you're in a store, especially if it's any kind of, it doesn't even have to be an upscale store or whatever, but can I help you? When they're really saying, what are you doing here? Can you afford to be here? And it's actually fun for me a lot of times because it's like, yeah, I can easily afford it. I mean, I had a guy at a store, a security guard, stop me from looking at a watch, an expensive watch, and I was wearing the watch. It was like, yeah, I think I can afford it, seeing as I have one.
Alonzo likes to walk around with his bank statements just to prove to people he belongs.
So but again, if I reacted to every one of those, I would be angry all the time. Being black in America is unique, I think, amongst minorities because of the history of slavery. Because for 400 years we were considered second class and animals and a bunch of other hateful things. So that is always inherent. That's always there. And then it goes the other way, like, wow, you're very articulate. Like, yeah, I am from here. I speak English. Like why? Like they're shocked. Like, oh my God, you're black and you speak English. Yeah, yeah. My family's been here for hundreds of years. When did you get here? So
Yeah, the articulate thing and the like you speak English so well thing is something that a lot of immigrants, is something that I've gotten, just because of the name, Nagin Farsad, or they hear that I'm Iranian and they're just confused. And then I think also women get a different type of microaggression, which is almost more it happens in like shutting them up when they're talking, like, or just like talking over them. We're really in the habit of like talking over women, and so that's a microaggression I think like probably every woman in the entire globe has experienced at some point. And that's again, like Alonzo was saying, like if you made a case for each one, you'd be doing it all the time. So we all come up with our own weird ways of just like managing it and moving right along.
Yes. So
Yeah,
how do you?
Kamala Harris in the debate, it was a great moment when she just said, "I'm talking. I'm still talking."
Yes.
And that was, women really heard that because as Nagin said, women get that all the time and Kamala Harris stood up for herself and she did it in a way that was like really cool, like it was dismissive
Yeah.
without being, she wasn't angry or mean, but she got her message across and there was definitely some swag in the delivery. So that was that was a great moment.
And
Yes.
the fly was on Mike Pence's head, but it was on her side.
Yes. So, what would you say to somebody who is offended by a microaggression? How do you typically handle a situation where you might be offended by one? Alonzo, we'll start with you.
You have to choose your battles. You have to choose your battles. I mean, I honestly, like here in the U.S., we're dealing with Black Lives Matter, right? We're dealing with the police and trying to reform the police department and police treatment of blacks. So when you look at the fact that a black male, particularly a young black male, I joke about it, like I've aged out of the threatening category. But if you're looking at the fact that, and this really hits black mothers, and I've talked to them, when you're worried about your kid getting killed, microaggressions don't matter as much. So again, you have to choose your battles because we have some real serious problems. Education inequality, economic inequality. So when you look at those things, yeah, the microaggressions matter and they add up, but unfortunately, we're still, as I said before, we're still fighting much bigger battles that our parents fought and our grandparents fought, and they've been renewed. Racism has, under the Trump administration, racism was emboldened, and they came out and they were told that they're not wrong, and they pretended they were the victims. They pretended they were the victims. So if you point out racism, then they yell, "Why you make everything about race?" So which allowed them to, propagate their messages, continue with that racism and ignorance and hate. So when it comes to microaggressions, I would say you have to choose your battles. You can't fight every single one.
Thank you. Nikki?
Yeah, I mean, I think you it's like you gotta like live your life, right? So I think Alonso's right. You should absolutely pick your battles, and I think you also have to learn to sort of I when I was early on, and Alonzo, you probably relate to this. Like in a writer's room, it's really loud. You're pitching a lot of jokes, and this is a lot of writers' rooms for television shows are male oriented. I mean, I don't know what the numbers are now, but when I started out, I was consistently the only woman in the room, and so I just had to literally deepen my voice, strengthen my resolve, and make sure that I couldn't be cut off. And it's just a skill that I had to develop, unfortunately, because everyone's just like knee jerk reaction would be to cut me off. And so I think I basically was taking a page out of like the male playbook, I guess. And it's worked for me, that strategy, in a lot of professional settings.
And the opposite also works. My brother's a corporate guy. He's been corporate all his life. And I remember a long time ago he said, if you're tall and you have a deep voice, people tend to do what you say.
So
So
no one will ever listen to me.
he would walk into the conference room and just start telling people what to do. And the next thing you know, he's managing the project just because they assumed that he was in charge because he just had a bearing about him just because of his physical height. We're 6'3" and you have a deep voice, and they were like, "Oh, well, he must be the guy in charge."
What would you say to someone who's 5 foot tall and sounds like a 4-year-old?
You could still be in charge. Why not? Hey, listen. Kevin Hart. How big is Kevin Hart on
Right.
stage? Honestly,
Yeah.
Kevin is his physical presence isn't huge, but his personality is, and his confidence is, et cetera, et cetera. And it becomes the physical joke when he's standing next to The Rock or he's standing next to Shaq, right?
Yep.
But he commands as much of an audience because it's in him to command that audience. So yeah, confidence. Just do it. Just speak up. And believe me, there are big people who, inside of me is a very small guy. Inside, I have another friend who he's like that, and he did a whole thing about it. About he's like 6'7" athletic, and he said, but inside he's still the 12-year-old nerd with the retainer and the this and the that. That's what's going on in his head. So yeah, the a lot of times the external is just not who the person is.
Yeah. I've learned.
And yeah, everyone's confidence is totally made up. You know what I mean? No, it walking into a situation and acting like you run it is like completely made up. No one feels that way to start out with, you know? So it's all about sort of like just building the practice of acting confident until you feel confident.
So would you say with confidence and a sense of humor that people with confidence and a sense of humor have an advantage in situations, in difficult situations?
I think so. I think humor is disarming. You know, if you're in a situation with people um, whenever experienced any kind of people yelling at me, like "go back to your own country" and all of that stuff that I mentioned in that segment. Those kinds of people would generally be disarmed if I would be like, "Hey, like, you want to have a chat, though?" You know, like I think people just don't expect that kind of reaction. People always expect an escalation. There's anger, but what if you don't respond that way? What if you respond with a smile and an invitation? You know what I mean? Assuming everyone's safe. Um, and again, and I think confidence just makes other people feel more comfortable that you know what you're doing and saying. You know what I mean? It just breeds comfort in everybody if you kind of approach a situation with confidence. And then humor just makes it more fun and unexpected. So, and forget humor, just like delightfulness, which is something everybody knows how to do. If you don't know how to do comedy, that's fine, but you definitely know how to do delightfulness. And I think that's something that is a tool, like such a useful tool in the toolkit.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, humor, it definitely disarms people, and it diffuses situations, it tense situations, and so on. It's happened. I've used it a ton. I am not what people would stereotypically see as a stand-up comic. And when I go on stage, and then after the first laugh, I mean, not so much now because I've been doing it so long, but in the beginning, they would exhale. They'd be like, "Oh, okay, this guy isn't what we saw." Confidence also comes from actually knowing what you're talking about. That is another thing. Do the homework before you get there, so that you can answer the questions and be ready. What Nagin was talking about confidence being learned. Unfortunately, we have a lot of con artists, right? We have a lot of, used car salesmen or whatever category. Trust me, I'm keeping the language clean on this, but you know what I'm talking about.
Get a job.
You look at our government. Look at our government all the time. Ted Cruz is ridiculously confident with nothing behind it. Nothing behind it. Just there's a saying we have. He's often wrong, but never in doubt. That you don't want to be that because people see through it. So confidence uh, is also built from expertise.
Ted Cruz may not have a lot of substance behind what he's doing, but he certainly has a lot of frequent flyer miles to Mexico. So he's got that going for him.
Absolutely. So, in terms of living in a world with racism, what do you wish you could tell your younger self? And again, we would start with you.
Oh my God. That's such a good question. Um, I would tell my younger self not to feel nervous or scared about pointing out stuff that's wrong. And that half of the time, and more than half of the time, it's not that people are just fundamentally racist. It's that they don't know, right? It's like bred out of ignorance, and that you can be someone who points it out to them, and you can't assume that they're just there to be bigoted or mean or out to get you. It's and yeah, I would say to my younger self, don't be afraid to speak up. It's okay, and you may actually like change a mind or get someone like this much closer to their mind being changed. Maybe they need to go this distance, and that's forever, but you're gonna be getting them closer and closer, little by little. And also, share the reality. I used to like act like I wasn't Iranian and Muslim. Like I used to water that down and like hide aspects of myself because I was embarrassed or like I just wanted to fit in. No, you are just far more interesting at cocktail parties if you talk about, the beef tongue sandwich you ate at lunch. You know what I mean? Like, let people know. This is the stuff we eat. These are the holidays we celebrate. Muslims, we're super fun. Like, you can make the stereotype and you can change the stereotype. And so, let yourself be like, an ambassador because you're a great one.
Wonderful. Thank you. Alonzo, what would you tell your younger self?
Well, I have to say, my mother told me something when I was young that really made a difference, and it was great advice. She said, "Remember, they're scared of you," and that was good advice, because it's something that you don't think about. You don't think of yourself as a scary or intimidating presence. Like when people bring it up to me, I'm like, look, we're not Vikings. I'm not walking in with an axe just killing people, raping and pillaging. Like it doesn't work like that anymore. So that was good advice I was given. I agree with what Nagin said. Embrace who you are. Yeah, embrace who you are. There have been a lot of times where I wish I had. I didn't have that. I don't have a natural self confidence. So yeah, embrace who you are, and you're good enough. And that's not just with race. That's with everything, right? That's dealing with your physical being. Like our society's really stuck on how much do you weigh or this or that. Any of those things, right? Like Nagin said, any of the things that make you different, although we're told to like push them down and try to homogenize, they're actually what makes you interesting. So embrace those things, and you find the people who are comfortable being different rise to the surface. You see that over and over. People, so embrace who you are, your individuality and your personality.
Thank you. I'm sure after how long you guys have been in the industry, I'm sure that it hasn't always been easy. So was there ever a point of time that you wanted to quit, and why didn't you? Alonzo, we'll go back to you.
No, never. I couldn't even imagine not doing this. I think when you're a comic, it's just ingrained in you. Like I never think of it as a job. It's just who I am. Used to say all the time, my job is going to the airport, catching planes, blah blah blah, all of that. The stage is home. That's so. No, I never even thought of giving it up. I can't imagine. I can't imagine not doing this. So no, and really quick, recently I learned the story of Charlie Case, who was a black man born to a white mother and a black father in 1858, who started out as a lawyer, failed, went to traveling salesman, failed, but could tell great stories, went to vaudeville, had a breakdown, couldn't do vaudeville anymore because he had to do it in blackface and he had to wear these costumes and this and that. And he just stood on stage and talked, and he made people laugh. And he is credited as having started stand-up comedy, being the first stand-up. So as a black man, that story really hit me like, wow, there's another one we did. So we got that and we got jazz. No, this industry can't make me quit, nor can it can't make anyone who truly believes and has a talent and a gift quit.
Good. We don't want you going anywhere. How about you, Nagin?
Oh my God. I mean, it is like rather brutal. There's so much rejection in this field, especially if, you add acting and all of that stuff to it. It is incredibly brutal, but then I don't know, you kind of grow to like you sort of like share a bunk bed with rejection in a way that just at the end just feels sort of normal. You know what I mean? Like, so yeah, it doesn't really occur to me much to quit. Um, because yeah, it's like also like, the alternatives for me at this point are very undesirable. But I mean, I could go into taxidermy. But even that feels kind of competitive. Like, could I break in like a career switch mid career change into taxidermy? I don't know. So I don't know. Yeah, I've thought about it, but like I just don't. It's just the thing is that you go back on stage and you get a laugh, and then you're like, well, it's fantastic, and then it just keeps it's like a drug, and then it just keeps pulling you back in. So the thoughts don't last for long if I have them.
Well, we're glad.
If the word no is going to stop you in this business, you won't last 2 years. You just won't. I mean, if you get in this business for the money, you won't last. You have to love it. Any kind of creative endeavor, you have to love, because unless you're born into it's hard, and you're going to hear no a ton. I mean, if you're born into it, then you have certain connections, and you'll get certain breaks, and you'll also learn much more about it, from a young age, from birth. But yeah, the word no in showbiz, and the other thing I've learned is you never know why they said no. You never know why, and it may have nothing to do with you. And to sit back and examine, is it because of your race? There are times when it is, and you know it is, but you just got to roll with that, because that's just the way it is. There's nothing you can do about it.
That's what we're here for today, to help change that. So is there anything else you would like to say to the world?
Talk to your neighbors. That's where the good stuff is. So many of our problems will be solved if you talk to your neighbors in a fun way.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're more alike than different. And what Nagin said, talking to your neighbors is how you find out. Again, I had the experience. I joke about it. I was bused to white schools before it was an issue, so they didn't have a chance to not bus me. And growing up, going to school with white kids was I didn't even realize how great that was, just because it takes away the unknown of their culture. And I went to school with white kids and Jewish kids, and they went to school with black kids, and we all, you're just kids, right? It's hard to be a racist at 5 years old, at 6 years old, you because you're like, well, this kid's good at basketball, or this kid's good at math, or whatever it is, right? So you just become friends with other kids, and then as you get older is when you start separating. So yeah, like Nagin said, talk to your neighbor, listen to them. That's even more. Eat their food. Eat their food. That one of the great things about growing up in New York, and we joked about this, you know how hard it is to be racist in New York? Like, just to make it down one block, the number of names you would have to come up with to insult every person you saw.
You'd have too much to
It,
do.
it's too busy. But
Yeah.
you look at the food, what kind of food, every kind of food in the world is in a 2 block span, and you and you're like, this is delicious, I don't know anything about the Middle East, but I like this hummus, or the shawarma. Whoa, you get hit with shawarma, you gotta like, hey, we gotta let him in, because have you had the chicken shawarma? Yeah, we gotta let him in. I'm sorry, we'll get to the religions later. They brought chicken shawarma, they're good with me, and so on. I mean, it's like Dave Chappelle famously did a joke about liking fried chicken, and it was like, I thought I liked fried chicken because it was delicious. I didn't know I was genetically predisposed to liking chicken. Like who doesn't like fried chicken? Fried chicken is good, So yeah, they open up, take a chance on another culture. It's amazing what you find.
Yes. So talk to your neighbors and eat fried chicken. Enjoy your night. Thank you both so much for joining us. Thank you for those of you who joined at home. Please remember to follow us on our Instagram and Facebook account at Team Harmony 2020. You can also follow Alonzo and Nagin tagged in our last post on our page. Until next time, thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank
Enjoy
you.
the rest of
Have a
your
good
night.
day.
You too.